Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and today we're going to talk about Major League Baseball betting. That's right. For a sport that goes on longer than any other, that's got twice as many games as any other, a lot of people still don't like to wager on Major League Baseball. Why? I don't know. Probably because it's a little overwhelming and there's so many things, but we're going to help you find that focus when it comes to baseball betting. And to help me do that, of course, is my co-host from Leading Off Live and the Fantasy Pros MLB show, the Welsh. So Chris Welsh is going to join us here, chat a little bit about MLB betting. And obviously, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell till it goes ding for notifications, so you know every time a piece of content drops here on the BP side. We just wrapped up the Derby. That was very successful. Now we're on to baseball because, Welsh, there's so much of it. And I think that's the problem. People see it, they get overwhelmed, but we, every single day, find the focused things that we like, and we have been consistently making money. We have our Betting Pros group there and Leading Off too, which you can join, bettingpros.com/leading off. Download the app, join us. We're at 100 members already in just a few weeks, and it's a great way to track your bets. And somebody here, the Welsh, is at the top of the leaderboard right now. So let's talk about why that is and how we can bet baseball better.
Yeah, you said it a little bit earlier, like the main thing here for me has been focus, because when I likened it, last couple of years, I've been, really diving into betting, and I started with football as it became legal out here in Arizona. And football has this really just magical thing to it where it's like you have this entire week where you're doing research and everyone's talking about it. And there's just we're all building up to the same thing where we can make the bet. Baseball does not have that. It's every single day. So it gets overwhelming, and there are so many things to bet. So what's been important for me is it's really been experience, and it's been finding out and focusing on what do I do well? Because you could think you could do so, but there's so much: strikeouts, total bases, hits, runs. How many outs did a guy get? Did he score in the first inning? There are some novelty bets. There's some, normalized side bet type of stuff. And there's crazy props. You got to figure out what is it that you can research and properly attack. And that's what's made baseball betting so much more enjoyable for me, because that rush that you get leading up until Sunday for your football betting, whether it is for, lines or props, you can now kind of take that into baseball, because you can say, hey, I'm good with strikeout props and I'm good with overs. And those are your two things that you are going to solely focus on every single day. And you'll pick and choose a couple of those and you can cash. And I've had some decent success at it so far this year. Like you said, I've been at the top on money percentage, winning percentage, and ROI, but it's because I'm not just willy-nilly throwing out every single one of those. And we happen to be talking about a couple of the things that I do focus on in this episode today.
Yeah, we're going to focus on no run first inning, yes run first inning, talk about ladder betting, for those of you who don't know what that even is, and also futures betting, which is something I've been crushing here on our MLB channel the last 2 seasons, making a lot of people, including myself, a lot of money on, and we want you to be able to do it successfully as well. And Welsh, for me, baseball is difficult because it's such a heavy failure rate sport. When you fail 70% of the time on the hitting side, and that's the best players, it's really difficult. So that's why I tend to look for the pitchers. I'm looking at the pitching market every night. I'm looking at strikeout totals. I'm looking at home heavy favorites and then pairing a couple of them together, because when you do that, most of the time you're going to be right over the long season. And we've been doing that consistently on our show this year on the MLB channel. Again, Fantasy Pros MLB, you can subscribe there too. But every day we do parlays of the day, we do prize picks, we do a lot of different things there. And it's fun because we've really done a good job of targeting specific underdogs on specific days, but also it really seems to stem from the pitching, which is our success. And again, guys get hurt. MLB can be a frustrating game, but I want to start here with no run first inning, because that is a very popular bet. And for those people who don't know what we're talking about, it's very simple. Whether or not you're going to bet if there's going to be a run scored or not in the first inning of a game. So Welsh, how do you approach that in terms of your wagering? Is this something you like to do a lot? And when do you actually go for the no or the yes side?
I don't do it a lot. It is, I will say this, it's more novelty than it is anything else, because it's so
arbitrary.
It's quick gratification in betting, because it is within 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a game, you can have your outcome instead of waiting if you play an entire game. That's what I think has made it so exciting. How many outs are there? 6 outs you got to get through. So that's what you're betting on. You're betting on 6 outs that you can get this cash. I actually think no run first inning, as much as a lot of people don't like it, I actually think it's good for betting because you need more simplistic baseball bets for people to have some fun with. I mean, we're also want to approach gambling as like fun and not just, the craziness or the bad side or anything like that. And no run first inning has that. The problem is, and this is how I would approach it. I have bet it before. I've actually used it more in our prize picks. I think that's kind of a better spot because no run first innings usually get juiced. So doing an individualized no run first inning, it's kind of dicey. Like if you can get like a minus 130, 135 or something like that, I think you can play it. But a lot of these will sit around 145, minus 150. So what ends up happening is you're tempted that you got to parlay these. And I think, Vegas knows that. They want you, the books know that they want you to parlay these. Right. And again, the cash is better. The stakes are low as in how many at-bats they need to get through. So if I'm going to approach it, I'd love to find one that is under 135, 130, something like that. Or if I did, I'd try to find a couple matchups that I really like. And one of the big pieces of research you can do is a lot of sites now are tracking who's scoring the most runs and how much opponents are scoring through the first 5. And I take both of those. That's part of my process when I go through, or in the first inning. I'm talking about first 5s. You can do actual first inning runs. And I'm looking up right here. And let's say you were going to attack a yes or a no on the first inning. Well, Tampa Bay right now is scoring the most runs in the first inning in all of baseball. So where I am 80% of the time going to take a no run first inning before I do a yes run first inning. If you had, let's say, Tampa versus Atlanta, who are number 1 and number 2 in first run scoring, that might be a place where you play first run inning. Or on the inverse of it, the New York Mets and Baltimore Orioles, they score the least. They 0.25 and 0.31 as we're recording this in the first inning. That might be one that you want to jump on no run first inning, obviously pending who the pitchers are.
Well, that's the great thing about Major League Baseball is it's got more data that really tells you the truth about these players and these teams than any other sport. And yes, that can also be overwhelming, but if you use it properly, like you're just looking at those early trends here, Major League Baseball, you could play the trends. You could also look at who are these elite pitchers? Who are these guys? Let's say that, you're calling some kid up who's never pitched in the big leagues for a spot start. That's looking like probably something you want to hit. Yeah, it's going to be a heavy minus number, but you could pair that, as Welsh said, with perhaps that same other team to win on the money line, right? So there's ways to make money using no run or yes run first inning. And the nice thing about it too is it's also easy to look at from a perspective of batting average against certain pitchers, certain pitchers who struggle against certain teams, certain pitchers who struggle in certain environments, guys who are struggling at home or on the road. That's how you can attack this. And the great thing about baseball is you have so much data at your fingertips to tell you that. Let's say there's a right-handed pitcher who struggles against lefties. He's facing 3 lefties right out of the gate in a lineup where they're stacking him up there. That's probably a spot where you want to look for the yes run first inning because you have a pretty good shot at it. So use the data that's available because the one thing that Major League Baseball gives you almost more than you can handle is data. You touched on the first 5 bet. I want to talk about this too because I think that's another bet that I know we've talked about quite a bit on our MLB program. So for those people who don't understand, let's get into that. Let's give our spiel about whether or not you want to get involved with, again, the first 5 betting.
This is where, and I think I jumped to it before because this is where I live. I live in the first 5. This is 80% of my game betting I ever do. Rarely am I jumping into full game bets. I live in the first 5, and there's multiple ways you can play it. So this is obviously like pretend your game just goes on through the first 5 innings. Why is that important? Well, let's say you got a great starter who is a dominant pitcher with a garbage bullpen. This guy can pitch fantastic through the first 5 or 6 innings, and then the bullpen can give it away. Think of it like the quality start of gambling. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone's like, hey, let's get rid of wins and focus on quality starts. A win is like a full game. A quality start is the first 5. So you've got just better odds through here to
which
lock
is
in
win
your
eligibility wins for those people who might not know as well.
So the standard is you've got your run line, your total runs, and your money line that you can play. Typically, the run line is a half of a run in favor of a team. The over is somewhere between like 4 and 5. And then you have a money line that's usually pretty juiced in favor of a pitcher. But I find those really beneficial. The other first 5 that I have been killing this year is team total runs. This has probably been my most successful this year, which I'm even surprised about. And that is attacking the amount of runs a team will score in that period of time. And I find the research really easy. You go, take a look at this pitcher. What have they been doing through the first 5? How does this team score through the first 5? That's another one, as I was mentioning to you. I have the first 5 up right here. Currently, the Texas Rangers score the most runs in the first 5 innings. They score 3.77. Tampa Bay's number 2 at 3.73. I'll take a look. How are they on the year, and how are they over their last 3 games? As we're recording this, this is where the kind of like the little secrets can come in. The Chicago White Sox have scored 7 runs over the last 3 games in the first 5 innings. So I had attacked them early on against the Royals. So those are ways I like to play it. Specifically, I'm going to play the run line. The money line is a good push if you want to play that. And I'm going to play the team total runs through the first 5 innings. That's one of my favorite places to go. And sometimes I did this on leading off the other day. I was like, Joe, if you remember, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with the White Sox. I kind of want to take the team total runs, but I also like the over runs, which is 4.5. And I haven't decided. And someone in the chat was like, oh, don't take either. They stink. Both of them cashed, and you could have cashed on both sides of those. So you can play those as a double up bet. Those are my favorite to go to. And team total runs is probably number 1 right now. Then I'll go to run line through the first 5.
Yeah, team total runs is a little easier to control. Again, the more variance you add, the harder it is to make money, something we talk about all the time, which is why we pick parlays in baseball very, very carefully. Like if I like a player to hit a home run that night, I might as well bet him for the home run. I might as well bet him for the total base and the run. I'm either all in or I'm not. Also, every day's board is different in Major League Baseball. It's something we stress a lot on the show. There's days where, I remember last week, there was one day where I went crazy with the overs on K-props, and I hit, 4 out of 6 of them. It was a great day. It was tremendous. And then the next day I was like, there's nothing on this prop board I like. Let's just shift over to money lines and put them together and make some money there. So every day is like a blank canvas in MLB. And you have to be very careful as well, because there's things you're going to go in on and things in certain days where you're not. So you have to pay attention to what every day is specifically, because some days the pitching matchups, the hitting matchups, they don't allow themselves to good bets. And that's okay. That's when you pivot to the games. And then some days it's more about individuals. It is about the game totals and other numbers like that. And again, if you're going to make these bets, do it at a place like BetMGM and use promo code JUICE when you do, because you get $1,000 in free bonuses, even if you don't win, with our partner BetMGM. So it's a great place to make some of these MLB wagers. Again, BetMGM, use the promo code JUICE when you sign up. Welsh, I want to talk about ladder betting, which is something you introduced me to this year that I wasn't even doing. And for those people who don't know, this is an interesting way to make money, but again, a way where it's really heavily targeted of when you do it. It's not something you do every day, but certain circumstances can prove out to be very profitable. So let's talk about it.
Okay, so the idea behind ladder betting is it's incredibly simple. Let's just first say, do you want me to give the example that I've got up here?
Yes.
And this is a real world.
It easy to learn, I find.
Okay. This is a real world example for, I don't know when this episode is going to drop. This is for Thursday. And I was trying to look and give you one. So the idea here is that you're going to stack your bets on a player's strikeouts as they go up. Shohei Ohtani has been a great one this year. There's multiple players. I had one earlier in the year, which was looking great, Jacob deGrom, and then he got hurt. Spencer Strider, deGrom, Ohtani, those are probably the top 3 guys that you would want to go in. But the logic here is this is a guy that is going to be able to far surpass their strikeout numbers, usually against a pretty strikeout heavy team. So my example here is Yu Darvish. Let's go with this for a minute. On Thursday is going up against Minnesota. Minnesota has struck out the 3rd most per game on the season. Darvish, so far, 2 games this year, he has 9 or more strikeouts. And both of those, and this is why I think this one is really interesting, came against heavy strikeout teams. San Francisco, who's the worst in strikeouts, and Milwaukee, who's in like the top, I think they're 20, like the top 10, top 10, top 11 in strikeouts. So much so as we're doing this episode, I've never seen this with Kershaw, or at least not yet this year. His strikeout number is 8.5 versus Milwaukee, which is an absurd number for him. We just don't usually see that. So let's say that the market on Thursday opens up at 6.5. I do think there's a possibility that it's 7.5. seeing what we just saw with Kershaw, but just follow me here. Let's say it's 6.5 and it's like going to be, minus 115 for 6.5 strikeouts. Well, we know that Darvish can pull up 10 plus strikeouts. We know that this team strikes out a ton, and we've targeted this bet. So here's how we would bet it. We would take 2 units, go and put that on 6 strikeouts. Put that on this, because usually when you do this on certain books, you're not going to get the halves and stuff. You're just going to have to go straight strikeouts. So we do 2 units on 6 strikeouts, which is probably going to be heavily juiced at like, minus 160. Then we're going to go and we're going to bet a unit to a unit and a half on 7 strikeouts, which is probably going to be minus 110, maybe even money, maybe if we're lucky. Then we're going to bring it down. At 8 strikeouts, let's bet a unit. At 9 strikeouts, we bet half a unit, and then maybe we put like a quarter on 10 strikeouts. You can obviously adjust this. If this is a 7.5 number, then you would use your unit at 7, 8, 9, and 10. You don't have to bet 2 units. You could do 1, half, a quarter, or 1.5. You do whatever your flavor is, but that is the concept of the ladder betting. You've really got to find a guy that can touch those high strikeout numbers, and you've got to attack it versus the numbers that the books put out. And don't be afraid of the juice that's put on a player in that instance. Go shop around, look for the best ones. It can be fun. It's brutal when you lose because you've probably put 3 units on it, but the win is on the inverse. And if you do it right, you will feel mighty, mighty happy.
Once again, it comes down to focused targeting betting. That's what you do here when it comes to Major League Baseball. Another thing is obviously the futures market of Major League Baseball, which is something where, again, Welsh lives in certain places. This is where I live.
You're a monster in this. You are a monster in this territory.
I gave you Bryce Harper 2 years ago at 30-1. Last year in March, gave you Justin Verlander at 25-1 to win the Cy Young. And the reason why, again, I think anybody can do this is because I'm talking about making small bets here and then understanding you playing it like the stock market. And what you're doing basically is, at the end of the day, probably investing a few $100 potentially, or 100 units, whatever it is you're looking at. And the return is going to be thousands, literally thousands. And the way to do it is very simple. The first thing is to understand that it's a media award, which means it's looking for a narrative. It's voted on by the media. So whenever you have a narrative of a player, it's very important. It's not always about the most valuable player, because Shohei Ohtani is always the most valuable player. The problem is last year he ran up against a media juggernaut of a Yankee breaking a home run record in a media market of New York City. So of course, Aaron Judge was going to eventually overtake him for that award, and he did. This year going in, we did a Major League Baseball show. We told you the things we liked going in. And then once you get 6-7 weeks into the season, as we are now, there's movement on some of these things. And some of the things that we're in on early, 2 of which have really changed significantly. If you have the BettingPros app, or if you're on bettingpros.com, you could see the opening lines for Zach Gallen and Spencer Strider, 2 of our favorite guys for Cy Young. They were at plus 1,500 and plus 1,400 respectively. They are now 2.5-1 or plus 300 right now. Those are the best spots you can get them. And these were our 2 favorite quote unquote long shots that we invested in. So even if you're just investing a unit or 2 early on, once you see the market move like this is when you start to, as I say, double down and triple down. Because eventually, once these go into the negative side, when they go into the minus juice, that's when the value gets away. So what you do is you take the small units invested at plus 1,500, plus 1,400. Then as the number continues to shrink, you keep reinvesting just like a stock. And then eventually what you're doing is you're investing higher numbers at the lower thresholds, because now you have one big giant investment in those players. Of course, injuries can happen. Of course, things change. Manny Machado was red hot last year. Going in for the first half of the season, looked like the MVP. I didn't spend one single dime on it because I know Manny Machado is not a player that's very well liked in media circles. And also, you'd have to keep up that incredible, astonishing pace. It's more about how you finish than how you start with this award, hence Bryce Harper last year too. Looking at other spots, Shohei Ohtani was another person we bet at 12-1 for Cy Young, because we said, hey, there's an opportunity here where the MVP number isn't great, but man, the Cy Young number is. Well, guess what? That 12-1 is now 4.5-1. And then Clayton Kershaw, the latest guy, Welsh, that I'm in on, was plus 3,500 to start the year. Now he's plus 1,200 for Cy Young. That number's been cut in half. There's a great narrative here carrying this Dodgers rotation, high-profile team, and a guy who really has been limited to just 22 starts the last couple of years. This could be kind of like Verlander of last year if Kershaw could put a big, healthy season together. Welsh, when it comes to MVP, it's a little trickier. Ohtani was the heaviest favorite he's ever been because he's such an anomaly, but the danger of him getting traded to the National League would absolutely blow up your money. Hence, a better investment, a smaller investment in Cy Young would have been the better way to go. Looking at MVP, to me, these boards are still very wide open. You've seen some movement here. You'll look for standalone guys, though. It's sometimes difficult on a team of superstars like the Braves or the Padres or even the Dodgers to separate yourselves from the other stars in the team, which is why a guy like Pete Alonso sometimes makes a lot of sense, or a guy who's more of a standalone person on their squad, because it's easier, like Aaron Judge, to kind of be clearly the most valuable. And then, Welsh, nobody's better at rookies than you. You host a prospect podcast. What do you look for early on and then as the season goes on when it comes to betting on the Rookie of the Year award?
I'm just looking for sustainability. I'm looking for players that are going to be able to stick around. Obviously, I'm also, putting my own prospect touch into it. I talked a lot about Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll was my bet. I got him around 4-1. I think that was the odds early on. That was my odds on favorite. James Outman was the killer of killer. And Craig Mish came on with us on leading off during Fantasy Fest and said he was Rookie of the Year. He is now the odds on favorite, which is bonkers. He was plus 7,500. That'll be the biggest payout. But my bets coming into this season, because I don't do a lot of future betting, I went Corbin Carroll in the NL. In the AL, I doubled down and I got Masataka Yoshida and Anthony Volpe, and I put even money, the same amount of units on both of those guys to cover two sides of the AL Rookie of the Year, because I felt Yoshida's ability to be in that lineup the whole season was going to help. And as a media award, Anthony Volpe would be the darling. The best deep bet was Josh Young, and I had said that it was 11-1. He has moved up to 6-1 now. It's good, but Yoshida is, I think, the odds-on favorite in the AL right now, and I got great odds on it. And my backup is Anthony Volpe. So I like in these type of spots to take two bets to kind of hedge my bet, and watch the unit size. Obviously, I'm probably not going to do that if they're like 2-1, but when you can get a 7+1 and I can take two of the guys, I hedge it out a little bit and my odds just become a lot greater.
And this is where the overlap is. If you play daily fantasy, if you play fantasy baseball, if you watch our baseball shows over on the MLB channel on YouTube, this is where you could take that knowledge and apply it, right? Josh Young was a player we talked about being a steal in drafts late. Great player. Last year, injuries just kind of derailed his rookie season. This year came back healthy, and he is absolutely rock and rolling. He was Rookie of the Month of April in the American League. That kind of knowledge, and in certain spots too, where you can cash out in certain sites like FanDuel, you've already made money on Josh Young. If you don't want to see it all the way through to the end, they let you cash out. Some sites do that, so keep that in mind as well. Same thing with Outman. You've already made a ton of money if you invested in Outman early in the year. My guess is we should have listened to our friend Craig Mitch on that show and had more investment in him. But the point is this: if you watch baseball, if you play fantasy baseball, if you play DFS, there's ways to make money with MLB, and there's ways to make it less intimidating. We hope we did that for you today. Of course, you can go follow us and watch us every single day live on our MLB channel, Fantasy Pros MLB. We've got great videos over there. And of course, make sure you subscribe to BettingPros as well. And wherever you get your podcasts, we're also on the YouTube. Every single show's on the YouTube. We've got a lot of great short form content on both channels as well. So make sure you check that out. Check out our sponsor too, BetMGM. Use that promo code JUICE when you sign up, and that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.